Here's our Alaska commentary for Tuesday, November 22nd, 2016. Once again, another warning from the State Department about a heightened risk of attack, especially for Americans who are abroad. Now, this is something that has, of course, gone in a kind of a loop over time. There have been some periods where there's a heightened risk, sometimes when it's not as dangerous to be abroad. And yet, the warning that is given is so vague. To be cautious at holiday festivals and outdoor markets, urging Americans to avoid large crowds and to be vigilant when visiting tourist sites or when riding public transportation or when meeting in places of worship, hotels, restaurants, other gathering spots. That's good advice no matter what, whether there is a heightened risk of an attack or not. Well before I was in human intelligence collection in the Army, I was aware of my surroundings, especially when I was in Paris in 1989, because of world events. 1989, I don't know if you recall, June of that year was the time of the democracy protests in Beijing, in which globally, we were just riveted watching that single man standing there against that line of tanks coming at him, standing up and basically daring them to run him down. Eventually, of course, they ran down the entire square. With the freedom marches and whatnot. Remember the Lady of Democracy that looked like the Statue of Liberty. Anyway, I went to Paris during that time frame, and then I ended up taking a side trip down into Morocco. And that side trip really opened my eyes to a lot of things. It was not a good time to be abroad as an American. If you recall, there had been an American hostage in Beirut. Higgins, I think was his name. For some reason, his name stands out to me. A lieutenant colonel who was killed. He had been in captivity for a period of time. When he was killed, the picture of his body was actually put on all of the newspapers around the world, and it was there on the front page of the local newspaper in Casablanca when I was there in the summer of 1989. I think I was there around July, August time frame. The point was that as an American abroad, I didn't do things to attract attention to the fact that I was an American. I didn't dress like an American. I didn't speak English while I was abroad. That's obviously problematic for people who only speak English. While I was basically I had been in Paris for about 2 months before I went down to Morocco, and so my French had pretty much adopted a Parisian accent. It wasn't bad. And when I went through customs going in, they asked me if I was a student. I said, yes, of course. And it wasn't entirely true. I mean, I was a student of life, of course. But the whole point was that I was aware of my surroundings, and because it was a bad time to be an American abroad, I was especially vigilant. I think it's good advice no matter what time, no matter where you are, to be aware of your surroundings. When you go out to eat, do you know where the doors are? Do you know where the windows are? Can you keep your eye? Obviously, I'm sitting here with my back in the corner, right? This is kind of how I do it when I'm out in public. It's obviously I'm doing it here at home as well. I've seen some interruptions today, kids coming in and out. I've got my older kids up all night. You know how that is. I've got the younger kids running around. Life intrudes sometimes, and just being aware of the doors and the windows, it makes a lot of difference for any kind of interruption in your daily schedule. Now, obviously, talking about security issues, think about it. If you know where the exit is and something happens, whether a bomb goes off, somebody comes in with a gun, if you have in the back of your mind what you might do if something horrible like that happens, then you aren't going to be one of the first people dead. You might, obviously certain things you just can't escape, but if you're at least a little bit mindful of it, you might be one of the survivors. I'm only throwing that out there because people get all bent out of shape when they hear these constant reports, and sometimes a little bit of numbness sets in, and we aren't as vigilant as we should be all the time. I mention that, once again, not because I put any special credence in the current warning any more than I have in any of the other dozens, hundreds of warnings that we've had since 9/11. My point, and I hope you're catching this, is that I think it's just generally good to be aware, especially when you're out in public, but all the time. I mean, you never know when there might be an earthquake or a tsunami. That happened. You never know when an airplane might fly out of the sky or a giant asteroid crash into the earth. I don't know. My point, and I hope you catch it today, is that we should always be prepared. If you ask yourself, how then shall we live, being prepared for the eventuality, that's not to mean to worry about it, because he who holds the future knows exactly what's going to happen, And if we live in such a way that we are where we're supposed to be and doing what the higher powers want us to be doing, and I mean that in a truly the higher power way, well, then we don't have to worry about it. If we happen to be in what some people might consider the wrong place at the wrong time, if you're in His will, it's the right place, no matter when it is. That's my commentary for today. I'm Steve Floyd, the man with the face made for radio. You will find my website, and hopefully you have already found it bookmarked and subscribed to it, at radiofreespeech.com. You'll find today's 1, 2, 3, 4 podcasts all looped together, and they're waiting for you, and to be shared with your friends, of course. We do ask that if you can, that you subscribe in some way, short form. Of course, there's a PayPal page where you can pick your donation level, pick your level. Basically, I put a little bit of a comparison of whether it's worth a cup of coffee to you, or a nice shirt, or whether it's worth, continuing your education, whatever it may be. Pay what you feel is appropriate for the service that you're receiving. I guess we'll put it that way. And make sure you check it out on YouTube as well. Once again, radiofreespeech.com.